This is Wes with Fox Sports Outdoors coming at you. And today's topic is going to encompass a couple of things. I made some notes here about what I'd like to talk about. If I can find them. Hang on just a minute here. There we go. Okay, I've seen a couple of reviews on different things in regard to the Bear Creek Arsenal uppers. I just showed you that everything is clear on this. Drop the slide, so everything is clear. And what I've noticed is some people that are saying that their uppers are kind of iffy when they're shooting their groups, they're doing it wrong. You'll see people with a bag and they'll try to just do it like this, with nothing to support the butt. Or I've seen them shoot groups from on top of a sack of cement and different things like that. And granted, when we're hunting, we're not going to carry around a sandbag and a tripod. That goes without saying. But that's hunting. That's not testing anything. Whether you be testing loads or wondering if your rifle shoots decent groups or anything like that. So just for some basic fundamental rudimentary type things, there's a number of things you need to check for and make sure that you're doing. And it doesn't matter whether you're shooting on a portable table like this sitting on an ice chest, or if you're shooting off of a concrete bench, a wooden bench, it doesn't matter. You still need to use the same basic fundamentals. First thing you got to make sure of is everything is tight. Your bases for your scope mount, your rings got to be tight, and there's torque specs. If you don't have a screwdriver that works as a torque wrench, get one. You can pick them up sometimes on sale for 40 or 50 bucks. Get one. It'll do two things. It'll make sure everything is torqued properly, number one, but it will also keep you from stripping threads, unless you have some kind of a fault in the workmanship of your equipment. The next thing that you have to do is sandbag it properly. This is a full floating forearm, so to be honest with you, I'm not that worried about where the front rest is in regard to relationship of the forearm. On a bolt action rifle that may or may not be full floated, you want to keep it back as close to the magazine well as you can. You don't want it out here because just a tiny bit of barrel flex here can make a little bit of difference even at 100 yards. The other thing you want to do is you want to take your body as much out of the equation as possible. Give me a second. I want to kind of line this up at least to the... I got a target out there at 100 yards, and I'll show you what I'm talking about with some things here in just a second. But I want to at least have this lined up where I have a point of aim. Okay, so here in a minute I'm going to shoot this rifle for a couple of groups and just to check my zero on my hand loads. But you want to take your body out of the equation. If you notice, I barely have hold of the grip, and all I'm going to be doing, I'm going to dry fire this. So all you aficionados that don't agree with it, that's fine, but it's my rifle. So I'm lined up on my target. You can see all I got is my shoulder into the stock. Got a light grip on, grip on the grip, and I'm just going to press. Notice I didn't raise my head up to check and see what happened or this and that and the other, because the follow through is also part of it. There's no jerking on the trigger, nothing like that. The other thing, and I neglected to do this, and I did it, but I didn't say anything about it, is you notice whenever I got through, I exhaled. You want to take a breath, let a little of it out, and then hold it, and then press on the trigger, keep the trigger back on your follow through, and then exhale. I'll show you again. That's how you do it. And the reason that I'm kind of showing this is I've only seen one review on YouTube on the Bear Creek Arsenal, and I haven't seen them all, but the 6 or 7 that I've seen, except for one, have all been somewhat negative in regard to the accuracy of these uppers. And when I watched, I thought, well, no wonder you have such poor accuracy with it. Look at how you're doing things, just from your rest to your mechanics to your basic rifle fundamentals. And my rifle is dead nuts accurate. I mean, it's it has a couple of purposes: coyotes, prairie dogs, and whatever else might need a 50 grain VMAX, which this is Fiocchi, and some people may or may not like it, but I'm going to be honest with you, this stuff shoots. And then I got a box here of my hand loads. This is some ones I worked up last week that if I do my part, they'll hold almost a half MOA at 100 yards, and the factory Fiocchi will hold right at or just under 1 MOA at 100 yards, which out of a factory ammunition and a factory barrel is not too bad, to tell you the truth. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and shoot a couple of groups here, and when I get done, I'll kind of go over the rifle a little bit and what I think of it. I hope I'm not out of line here with the description that I've given this rifle and my loads. We'll know here in a minute though. But basically, I just want to check my zero. The other thing I see people doing is I got to shoot 5-round groups. I got to shoot 5-round groups. Well, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with shooting 5-round groups. In fact, on occasion, I do it myself. But when I want to find out whether a load is accurate, I shoot 3-round groups. It's like, say I'm working up a load, I got different, weight grains of powder or whatnot. I'll shoot three shot groups at different target, places on the target. I use targets where I can shoot 5 of them. I'll shoot 3-round groups. And then I'll wait for a little bit, then I'll shoot the next 3-round group, and I'll wait for maybe a minute or two, because shooting is also a mental game. And then what I do is I come back and I shoot the last 2 rounds at the corresponding place where they belong, and that way I'm not checking my mental or physical shooting stamina. I'm actually finding out whether the load is accurate or not. After that, and I know that I feel confident that I have an accurate load, I don't shoot 5-round groups anymore. I shoot 3-round groups just to check my zero. If I'm going to chronograph something, I might shoot 10, but I'm chronographing. I'm not shooting for groups. I'll still try to shoot a good group, but that's not the point. The point is to get a good representative group of velocities that you can base a good decision on in regard to how fast your loads are. So this time we're going to go live. I've got a target down there at 100 yards. I measured it with my range finder at 100. Actually, I'm about 101 yards, but I didn't feel like walking any farther. I want to kind of move this table and level it up just a little bit. There we go. And it doesn't take anything special. You know, the table is fairly, if the wind's not blowing today, this is southwest Kansas, and you find a day when the wind ain't blowing, you're lucky. That's one of the reasons I wanted to double check the zero on this rifle, because I sighted it in about a 10 or 12, 15 mile an hour wind. So we'll see how she does. Another thing you'll notice is I don't have my hand up here. I don't have it up here like this. With bolt action or semi-auto rifles like this, you need to let the rifle do what it wants. Now, with a lever gun, they have different geometry, and especially ones that have a lot of recoil, like a 45-70. It doesn't hurt to do that. In fact, it's kind of recommended. But not with these types of guns or a bolt rifle. You need to let the rifle recoil naturally. Okay, that's about 1 MOA. So, and I need to come right just a little bit. And it's going to take a minute. Usually my first shots are not quite as good as my subsequent shots. So I'm going to just kind of sit here and wait for a little bit. Then we're going to come back and do it again. That is a half MOA group, but like a bonehead, I turned the windage the wrong way. I do that quite a bit. Evidently, I'm somewhat functionally illiterate. There. And I think the elevation is pretty much spot on. Wouldn't hurt to come up about a half MOA. There we go. The other thing is some people will zero their rifles to be 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches high at 100 yards. And I used to do that, and then they came out with scopes that have subtensions in them along the way. This scope has subtensions at 1.5, 4.5, 7, and 11 MOA. So I don't do that anymore because that puts me pretty much dead on, you know, with the subtensions up to 4.5 out to about 300 yards, and that's about as far as I care to shoot this rifle. If there's a coyote a little farther, I might, but typically not. So anyway, I think this ought to get me pretty close. That's going to be a respectable group too. I think I want to come up 1 more 1/4 inch. There. And the windage seems to be pretty much dead on. And I'm going to shoot 1 more 3-round group with my hand-loaded ammunition, and then I'll come back and shoot a 3-round group with the Fiocchi. the Fiocchi factory loads. Let's kind of give her a minute here. Then it'll be time to kind of go over a little review of what my rifle is here, which won't take very long. Okay, I got two in a 5/8 circle bullseye down there, and one just outside of it, and that kind of drives me nuts. So I'm going to put one more, because that flyer is probably me, and I'm trying to show something in regard to the accuracy of these barrels. There we go. That's going to be roughly half MOA when I take out the flyer, which was me. Okay, I got to stop and pick up some brass. The other thing I want you to note too on the brass, I fired 13 rounds. And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I think I miscounted. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 12 of them right here in an area maybe 4 feet around. And one of them, maybe I miscounted. Maybe I didn't. Oh, I think I missed one right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13. There was 13. Found all of them in about a 3-foot circle. So, you know, one more thing about this particular upper, and don't get me wrong, it was a complete upper. I didn't build the upper. I built the lower from a stripped lower and whatnot, but it's not over gassed. It's not flinging brass all over the countryside. It was all in an area where it was easy to find. The one thing I do like about the side charging upper versus the others is that it's slick sided. The last AR I had, and I've had a few of them, but the last one I had was really over gassed, and it didn't have an adjustable gas block on it, and I wasn't willing to put one on it, but the brass deflector just beat the dog out of my brass. And I'm kind of picky about that stuff, so I got rid of it. Okay, now I'm going to shoot hopefully a 3-round group with this Fiocchi factory ammunition. Same bullet weight, but this is factory ammunition. Because one of the other things I see people doing when they're trying to check loads and determine the accuracy of these Bear Creek Arsenal uppers, they're using crap ammunition. IMI stuff from Australia, I don't know. It's not what I would call quality ammunition. Some people wouldn't call Fiocchi quality ammunition, I suppose. I guess if they think it doesn't say Hornady on it, or some type of federal. Just a minute, my wife's calling. So anyway, back to what I was saying. You know, some people, if it don't say federal match or gold or something like that on it, oh, this is junk ammunition if it don't say that. Well, you know, I think part of the reason people are having such poor groups is that they're not using quality ammunition. But I think the biggest part of it is that they're not actually taking the time to bench rest and test the rifles properly. I'm going to be honest with you, you know, I saw a guy shooting some IMI stuff, and he was complaining about 5 and 6 inch groups at 100 yards. And I watched how he was doing it, and I thought, dude, you're lucky to get that much. I'm surprised you can even hit the paper at 100 yards. Whereas I'm going to be honest with you, if I was to run that through this rifle, I could probably hold 2 to 3 MOA with it. Not because of the rifle, but because of the setup. You got to take yourself out of the equation as much as possible if you're going to actually test the accuracy of a rifle. And I don't see people doing that. I see it in some areas, but now there's one guy who did it, you know, kind of the way I was talking about, like he was kind of doing it like this, and that guy can shoot. I think it was called Mintac or something like that. He had a Bear Creek Arsenal upper on his AR. That guy can shoot. I mean, he's got some skill, and I think what it boils down to is he's very, very comfortable with his equipment and his setup, and he knows how to do it. I don't think he's an amateur, which I'm not saying that the other people are too, are amateurs, but in the way that they're trying to do things, it looks very, very amateurish. And this isn't a professional thing by any means, but when I bring that target down and show you what these hand loads just did, you're going to think, well, how come I'm not doing it that way instead of putting my rifle on top of a concrete sack? So anyways, I'm going to shoot a group with this factory Fiocchi and show you that even with factory ammunition, that the rifle is fully capable of 1 MOA or less. Okay, I want to shoot one more. For whatever reason, this rifle seems to shoot a little bit better when the barrel's been warmed up a little bit. Don't get me wrong, that's not a bad group at all, but I think there's a little bit more in her. Okay, that one's going to be right at 1 MOA, maybe just a touch more. There's two holes touching down to the low, and one up about an inch. It could be 1.25 inches, I don't know, but it's going to be pretty darn close to 1 MOA. So before I walk down, you can see that this rifle is completely cleared. Pick up my brass. I shot 6 rounds. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I'm not able to count again, so let me just pick them up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds. Those were within a 2-foot circle. So the only, you know, halfway negative thing I can say about the side charging upper is I'm constantly having to tighten up the charging handle. If I ever decide to build another one, I might build a non-reciprocating side charging upper, but I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm really digging this rifle right now. Okay, give me a minute, gotta walk down and get the target, and I'll bring it back and show you what we did. Okay, I'm gonna kind of zero in on the target more than me here. This is where I, you know, my first 3 rounds of my ammunition. Like I said, this rifle likes to be a little bit warm. So when I move the windage the wrong direction, this is my point of aim, this is my point of impact. Those are 22 caliber holes. That's well with under 1 MOA. Probably about 3/4 to maybe 875, something like that. These were already here. And so I moved it back to where it belongs. Actually, they weren't. I put a couple rounds here just to check it. Then I shot 3 rounds. The first 2 hit. This is a .625 circle bullseye. The first 2 hit here. Then I pulled the flyer, which is still going to be right at 1 MOA. When I said, oh, I can't have that, put 1 more round in it, it hits right there. That's less than, roughly half to less than 1/2 MOA. Okay. This was the first 3 round group of the factory Fiocchi after the rifle had cooled down some. And we probably got 1.5, maybe less, out of a cold bore rifle. Warmed it up. Right here we're looking at, if anything, just a touch over 1 MOA. And the last 2 bullets hit right there. Within, I mean, they're almost touching. They're within 1/8 of an inch of touching. So these discussions that you're seeing everywhere about Bear Creek Arsenal, you know, maybe not being as accurate as something, and don't get me wrong, I suppose you could spend $500 on an upper and maybe you'd expect more, but this is an M4 profile 223 Wild, M4 profile barrel in a floated fore-end. And I'm going to be honest with you. If you're expecting more than 1 or 1/2 MOA out of I got the whole upper for $230. I caught it on sale during Memorial Day. If you're expecting more than that out of a $230 upper, maybe you need to get your expectations in check a little bit, because it does what it says it'll do. You just have to be able to do your part. Okay. Here in a second, I'll come back and we'll kind of go over the build a little bit. I want to talk to you about how I built this. I've owned 3 other AR-15s. I owned one back in the 90s, and I'm not I'm not a huge AR-15 fan, to tell you the truth, because I don't like the rear charging handles. Even with the extensions, they dig into my back when I carry them and whatnot. And I found these, and I thought that might actually be an AR-15 I would use, because I hunt with it. I hunt coyotes and I carry it. It's light, but I'll come back to that in a minute. I'm going to kind of pick some stuff up and put away a few things, and I'm actually kind of getting ready to shoot some prairie dogs here in a little bit. Once the sun kind of comes out, the prairie dogs will get a little bit more active. But in fact, where my target was, I saw 3 of them scurrying over to the east a little bit ago. So anyways, I'll come back and kind of go over the build with you a little bit. But if you're leery about a Bear Creek Arsenal upper like this, in my experience, I wouldn't be. I'd buy another one in a New York Minute. In fact, at Christmas, I'm probably going to buy a 6.5 Grendel and use this same lower and just swap out the barrel. Maybe before Christmas, because I might actually hunt my deer with it this year instead of my Creedmoor. But I haven't made that decision yet. So we'll see how that works out. But anyway, give me a few minutes to put some things away and get a little bit of stuff picked up, and we'll kind of go over the build with you.